They say dairy cows are like athletes, and when all that care, nutrition, and data-driven management come together, we see potential reached beyond what we ever thought possible. Well, today we bring back a guest who is an ultra-endurance athlete himself, a dairyman that ran his first 100-miler this past year. Jordan Matthews is back on with us today as we visit Rosy-Lane Holsteins in Watertown, Wisconsin, to talk about how their dairy is unlocking their herd's potential through the culmination of genetics, environment, management, and feed technology at the Rumen microbial level. All this and more here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Native Microbials, the makers of Galaxis Frontier, powered by advanced microbiome technology proven to help cows perform to their full potential. Learn more at nativemicrobials.com. So this is like our fancy interview. This is not the virtual where I had to look at you on the computer. I finally get to sit down face to face. So I'm excited to get to be here officially here in person at Rosy-Lane. Welcome, Jordan, to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast.
Welcome to our farm.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've been here before a few times over the years. In fact, fun history fact, one of the very first podcasts I ever recorded was right upstairs in this farm office.
With the boss man. Right?
With the boss man. But here we are again, many years later with the new ownership and leadership here at Rosy-Lane. So Jordan, a pleasure to be here with you in person. And before we get into more of the farm conversation, I'd love to take a minute to catch up because the last time you and I had a podcast chat about a year ago, you were just about to participate in like this ultra endurance run. And it was for a very powerful reason. So can you take me back to about a year ago and that experience, what you were doing and why you were doing it?
Yeah, so my brother has been battling stage 4 cancer for just past 6 years. They gave him 6 months to live, and he's still here, going through different treatments, but battling through it strong. And he's motivation for myself, my family, and a lot of people. So one thing that I've tried to do every year was just a way to show my support to him that, we can do hard things, and I know when he's sitting through long chemo sessions that I'll go out for a run, and I know he'd love to be there with me running, but he's sitting in a chair and not enjoying that day. So we had a small group that got together at our park and just ran. It was a 2.25 mile loop. We did it for 13 hours because I know he's been in treatments or surgeries for that amount of time, and we just were going to see how many miles we could do. So I think collectively our group, we got just shy of 200 miles we ran. And I set a personal record for myself that day of 67 miles in 13 hours. So it's kind of cool. I was destroyed at the end of the day, but yeah. And then we raised some money. So we raised over $10,000 that day that goes to UW Carbone Cancer Research. So every time we've done an event, I think that was our 5th event that we had done, just try to raise some money locally that goes to research. And we have 2 family members. I have an aunt that's battling cancer as well. And I know it's uplifting to them to know that, there's always support out there, whether people can show up or give them a meal or donate to a cause that they know is, hopefully helping their longevity. So.
Well, such a meaningful effort, Jordan, and an extreme one too, to set that goal. And like you said, 67 miles that you ran last year for that cause. And so how's your brother doing now?
Good. He had a little blip here recently. They had to change the meds, and now he was on a kind of I would say, easier treatment for a while. Over a year, he was on a treatment that his body was handling well, but they saw some stuff and wanted to take a kind of a left turn. So now he's on a treatment that isn't quite as fun for him. They're trying to figure it out. But talked to him the other day. He's excited by the weekend. He starts treatments on Mondays, and Monday through Thursday aren't very fun, but he gets to have the weekend with his kids, and he's still active and getting out there running and biking, and most days of the week is still a pretty normal day. So.
And you haven't exactly slowed down either.
No, I set a new PR.
You set a new PR.
Yeah.
Tell me about your new PR.
So I wanted to run a 100-miler in 2025. I helped two friends run 100-milers, and I was on the crew, and the whole time I'm helping these guys. So, ran some miles with them out on their adventure, and was making sure that they were good with their nutrition and keeping them motivated to the end. And I really had FOMO. I was like, man, I should have been out here. So signed up for one that was 100-miler in Central Illinois. So the goal was 20 hours. That was the A goal. The B goal was 24 hours, and the C goal was just to finish. I had 30 hours to finish, so I did 22 hours. And for my first attempt, I was happy with that. So, yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. Congratulations on a 100-mile run. 22 hours sounds like something to be very proud of. And the fact that you're still standing is actually something I'd be pretty dang proud of too. But Jordan, I think what you just talked about is one of the reasons that I enjoy visiting with you so much, because what I see in you that you do to challenge yourself through running and through an endurance activity, it's the challenge. It's also all the calculated detail that I know you put into training, fueling, timing those things out. And again, that purpose behind it. Would you say that it's not that different of an approach of how you look at what you do here at Rosy-Lane?
Yeah, it's everything starts at Rosy-Lane with our vision of great people, great cows, great returns. And every day we show up, we have to look at, there's a lot of families here that they're sacrificing time at home, potentially with their mates, their husband, their wife, their children, to come put in the time for us and what we believe is a good cause. We're providing nutrition for worldwide markets, and again, family time should usually trump everything. But people do have to make a living, and if they're going to sacrifice time with their family to come to our dairy and help us achieve our goals, people need to be number one. So we're always, trying to put in as much time as we can, focused on our people, and through that, everything else kind of clicks. But a lot of attention to, all of our managers on our teams is really dialed and need to be precise with, how we work with our people, and it's got to be number one.
Yeah. So people number one, and then as your motto says, I can read it on your shirt right from here: great people, great cows, great returns. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the cow care side, there have been some things that are new around Rosy-Lane since my last visit, which was probably a year and a half ago or so. Do you want to walk us through some of the things that are new here at the farm?
I think the talk of the town is our calf barn. So we onboarded it May 1st of this year. In our old barn, we had group housing. It was just two calves together, but we really saw the benefit of that. We had worked with the university. Dr. Jennifer Van Oss had come to our barn a lot, and really she was intrigued that we were pushing that concept and how can we do more of that. Weren't excited about robotic feeding. A lot of group housing was more of that trend, and so we hadn't seen many models that were able to have group housing without a robotic feeder. So went out and investigated. I think Sam and I probably went to 10 or 15 different barns. Saw some things we really liked, talked to producers, and there was certainly, people aren't shy to tell you what they didn't like about their barns and what they've changed and still what they're trying to tweak. So, we saw a model similar to what we have right now out in South Dakota, and we really liked that. So brought it home. It's been 95% good since we got into it, but still, we have our tweaks that we had to figure out. And I think if you ask Sam today, he's 99% of the way there. There's still, every day there's something that we figure out it's just not perfect, but calves are looking great going through it. We're really glad to have calves back on site, and they're performing like they're supposed to in a barn, and everything we didn't like about our last barn seems to be corrected. And we're still new in it. Are they performing because there's been no disease to go through it? Maybe. Or did we get it right? So I think the real question is, in a year, ask us again if it's performing. But excited about how the calves are starting so far.
And so when you talk about designing this barn that was kind of everything you really wanted and bringing in ideas from other places. It's this modification to group housing that allows you to have that calf socialization that you had in some ways before, but now it's a little bit larger group, keeping calves on bottles throughout that duration right up until weaning.
Correct.
Yeah. And then also, as you talked about, this controllable environment with ventilation and then also the ability to just keep things super clean and in making it easy to do so. It sounds like there was a lot of detail that went into making this what it is. And so far, so good, huh?
That's what I think. Sam, Sam's our on-farm manager up there. And again, it was just onboarding it in so many processes that you can't quite prepare for on day one. So he also had a child born, 2 weeks after we onboarded that barn, or it was pretty close after that. So he had a lot of stress. Now you look at him today, he looks rested and he's got good color to his face. So I think things are going good. That's how I judge it.
Well, that's good. That's good for the calves, and good for Sam,
Yep.
good for everybody here at Rosy-Lane. But Jordan, one of the reasons I bring up, the calf barn, not just because it's new here at your place, but I think it also represents what I think about when I think of Rosy-Lane, and that's this early adaptation of ideas, technology. It's something that if I were to look back into the history of even, my career as a journalist, being out here visiting with Lloyd and Daphne and their ownership days and management days up until today, I'd almost say I consider it part of the culture.
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting when I started here as a young boy, when I was 14.
You were, young.
And not from a dairy background. But this was the local farm I got a chance on. But the name Lloyd and Daphne Holterman, when I would go anywhere in the industry, where do you work? Rosy-Lane Holsteins. To me, it was just the farm I worked at. I didn't really know the reputation that was here. But as I grew in my career, as I went to the university, you say those names, so either Lloyd or Daphne or Rosy-Lane, everyone knew who they were, and it's not for bad reason. It was always very positive. So whether it was talking about the performance of our cows, the genetics, how we treated our people here, it was everything. That they set that standard before I was here, but from when I was here in 2002 was when I started. I saw at least the people aspect as I understood cows better and performance of I thought everyone's cows milked to 100 pounds. I thought that was normal. Not quite. So there were some things that were in my favor here. But then as I came back after school, certainly I realized as I dug into the past of our farm, if we want to be the best, if we want our cows to strive to perform the best, we need to try things. We can't be afraid. And that was always, I think, Lloyd and Daphne's mentality. That it's just kind of how we've continued, because we've seen it works more often than not. And you're going to have a failure here or jump on board on something maybe too soon. But if that's only 1 out of 10 times, you're ahead 9.
When you look back again in that history of Rosy-Lane, what else stands out to you as some other areas where there's been that leadership in the field?
One, so if we're talking about barns, in 2007, we built our CrossFit barn. I was actually on an internship out of state during that year, and I was kind of bummed. I came back at the end of the summer, or when I left, we had a little bit of concrete poured, and I was trying to picture, how is this barn going to be designed? It didn't make sense compared to our previous barns when I saw the layout of it and how concrete was being laid. I went to Florida for the summer, and I came back after, and the barn's, basically standing, and it's like, whoa, how does this barn work? It didn't make sense to me. Again, a cross vent. It was one of the first ones in Wisconsin. And to put all your marbles in that basket and say, this is what we're doing. It's going to work. I said, Lloyd, how do you know? I toured, some places out in the Dakotas, and I think you went down to Kansas as well and saw some. But in Wisconsin, was it going to work in this environment? Biggest investment Lloyd had ever made at the farm at that time. And we look back, I think cows were in it 1 month, and you knew instantly, this is what a great decision. Even to this day, it's been a great barn for us. We can see the mechanical ventilation. It's awesome. We wouldn't go back on it.
How about genetics?
Yeah, I always laugh Lloyd's way of breeding the cow is very much, we need a functional cow. We need a cow that's going to walk to the parlor, a cow that's easy to attach units to, a cow that's fertile and makes, high cheese yield. That's our market here in Wisconsin. So we're right next to World Dairy Expo, right? We're 40 minutes down the road. We get a lot of tours from Expo, and people would come out here, and I think people were always maybe not shocked wouldn't be the right word, but because of we have put a lot of bulls into the industry over time, and really good commercial animals, but people would come out here, and I don't know if sometimes they were blinded by Expo and these big beautiful cows, but they'd see ours and they're drastically different. But nice cows walking to the parlor, functional, udders just blasting full of milk, and just nice square cows, powerful. Like, wow, you can do this on a commercial herd? It's like, well, I mean, this is what we're doing. This is what I focus on. And then genomics came about. And when we started testing what are cows that have these traits that Lloyd had been pushing forever with his genetic program, I mean, we had a lot of animals in the top. We were selling bulls like crazy. And Lloyd's favorite thing in the world was to say, like, we don't need a classifier anymore. I just need my pliers to pull a hair sample, and that's going to sell more bulls than a classifier coming on our farm. And again, he believed in the genetics. And so, genomics has changed things where you still want to look at the cow and reassure that it was the right decision, because she does need to be functional. But we made a lot of decisions purely off data, and it seemed really risky in the beginning, but I don't know. I think we're better off because of that. And our herd is still, we're in that top percentile of herds out there on production and a lot of different metrics that we focus on. So yeah, genetics has been huge for us.
As you share these stories, Jordan, I can just think back to some of those timestamps in history. And when you share, these examples, whether it is one of the first cross-fent barns in the state of Wisconsin to early adoption of genomics, there would have been people that would have thought that was risky. However, there was also behind the scenes a ton of research, and it's no different than what you just talked about with building this new calf barn, right? Something a little bit different, a couple of models that existed, but tweaking it to what was going to make the most sense at Rosy-Lane.
And I give a lot of credit to, so I'm a University of Wisconsin grad, Lloyd, Daphne are grads, Tim Strobel, our partner, is a grad, Sam's a graduate of Platteville, but we're pretty linked with the system, right? And so we not only do we have consultants, so we have our feed consultant on farm, we have a financial consultant that we deal with, but kind of some unbiased opinion. We like being linked with the university as well. So we usually have trials and different things going on with the university, but we're connected because we're so close. We've done so many things with them. We like bouncing these ideas off them as well. And I think that's pushed us in positive directions and kept us away from some negative directions.
What comes to mind for me as I'm listening to you is, all these different areas that you've been able to capitalize on, right? So you start out talking about the people and the team. So that's number one, right? And now we talk about the cows and the genetic side, optimizing that, and then building the environment that will allow that cow to express her genetics, right? So whether that's through the cross-fent barn for the milking cows or through the new calf barn, there's that environmental piece. But as we talk about what's next in technology, you have these opportunities to say, well, what's the next lever that I can pull to optimize each of these areas? People, cows, environment, genetics.
Yeah, I think one thing we've always been big on is focusing on feed efficiency. Everything on overall management we think fits into that number. So we track that number very close. It's a number that we highly correlate on our dairy to profitability. And probably just over 3 years ago, our previous nutritionist, Paul Roden, came to the table. He says, I know you guys like feed efficiency. There's an interesting product out here. I think we need to explore this. There's a milk benefit to it too, but those two, if you can get some milk benefit and you can get feed efficiency, it's what you guys look for. I think there's going to be a return on this. Interested in investigating. And it's nothing that we had ever heard of, who is Native? I never heard of this company. You guys know anything about this? I don't know anything about this. So very new company, but yeah, this Galaxis product and talking about Rumen microbiome, and it was a different path than I think we've talked before. So it was intriguing to us because, again, if not many people are talking about it, it's either, are we going to be the smartest ones by trying this, or are we really dumb for trying it? And we never really know until you investigate more, right?
There's a lot of products that someone could add into a ration. And I'm sure you've vetted out many over the years. What made this one different and worth putting your trust in?
From a nutritionist standpoint, they want to say this is a feed ingredient because it goes through the mouth. So is it a nutritional product? Is it like a caloric product? And it was hard to get past that stumbling block that it's not put in the cows for calories or energy, and understanding that, Native took, I don't know what it was, hundreds of thousands of rumen samples to understand what are the most highly correlated bugs in the rumen that are linked to high production in cows. So I think there's been attempts in the past, and this is not my area of expertise, right? But to feed the bugs that are in the rumen to try to get them to multiply. So this was a different approach. Native is not doing that. They're just putting those direct bugs in the rumen because feeding them isn't a strategy that they felt worked. You just directly put them in there, and every day you're putting these bugs in there. So it started as there was 2 bugs. Now we're up to 4 on the newest product of Frontier. We still think at the end of the day, when we look at our vision of great returns, so are we getting the economical return, right? So we had a bump of, I think it was 0.03, 0.04 on feed efficiency, which in our system, that has a value. We saw like a 2.5 to 3 pound energy corrected milk response. That has value to us. And then again, at the end of the day, we have limited resources. So if we're putting a pound of feed into this cow, what's the value? Not economically, but we just don't have to produce as much feed, right? And that single cow she's going to produce less manure. And when we look at the impact of our neighbors and everything we do, can we get the output of 1,200 cows at this site with 900 cows on site? And what does that do? Telling our neighbors we're better than average. We're actually on the extreme high end, and we're doing everything we can to achieve our goals with fewer cows. Most people like hearing that. They don't want to hear that we're going to be a 10 or 20,000 cow dairy here. They like the size where we are today. So again, everything we could do, can we produce more with the same amount of animals, and that efficiency aspect? That's why we've always liked that feed efficiency of more milk down the road, the same animal units here is that's an intrigue to us. They're taking our data that we collect on farm. They're taking our tests not only from the milk plant, but individual milk cow data, individual component data of cows. We were seeing things on farm, but they took in so many more factors. They were able to put in temperature into their model, which we don't do on a daily basis on farm, right? We've trained our guys in the barn a little better because of what we've seen on the mixer audits that we just never previously had done. So as long as we see the return, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And you're measuring those returns.
Yeah.
That's part of, again, when I think of what's Rosy-Lane known for, it's being very strong business managers. So as you learn more about the rumen microbiome, what do you think is possible by really looking at that very specific detail and the world that could unlock for your goals here?
I actually talked to a professor at University of Minnesota so we're trying to change the microbiome to an adult, but I asked the question, when is that fully established? Can you potentially change that earlier? I don't know. I think it's worth more investigation. I don't know who's going to pay for that study because studies aren't free, but yeah, if you could shape it earlier on in life, I think that would be interesting.
And I would put this conversation in some ways a little bit parallel toward the conversations on human gut health. And, for you as a performance and endurance athlete, you think a lot about what you put into your body, especially when you are running 60 to 100 miles.
I don't know. There's a lot of days I wish humans could do more. I mean, we look how we treat our animals on the farm, right? And it's precision nutrition. I mean, when we're starting with those calves, we're feeding them exactly what we feed pasteurized saleable milk here. It's exactly what mom made for that calf, right? It's the best thing in the world for that calf. I think you pay attention to anything in the news, healthcare is a disaster right now in our country. You know, there's a lot of issues with human health and what's causing that, heart disease, whatever. We can go on a rampage about it. But I don't think people really check in with what they're eating. And I think we're fortunate in the dairy industry. We produce a product that is it's Mother Nature's gift to this world, right? It's packed with everything we need, highly nutritious, very nutrient dense, depending what form you want to take your dairy. But let's look at what we're putting in our body. Let's be conscious of it. So, I mean, I eat everything in dairy we use a lot of butter in my house, but we drink whole milk only. We don't do any of the other, products. We have chocolate milk in my house. I eat a lot of ice cream. So it's a wide array, but I look at, let's look at the proportion size of different things. And I think we need to be promoters of our brand. And I think we should look the part too. I look at our industry where we've prided ourselves on working 18-hour days and look how fueled by Mountain Dew and coffee. And I'm like, man, I think it's better that we get some sleep. How can we do better total lifestyle decisions and take care of our health a little better? And it's funny. I run with a shirt that says "Fueled by Dairy" on the back of it, and it's Rosy-Lane logo on front. And, when I'm out running, there's people that'll ask me, like, what does that mean? I said, it's exactly what it says. Like, I'm a dairy farmer. I get to chime up some interesting conversations. I said, like, are you really fueled by dairy? Like, there's nothing better than chocolate milk at the end of a run. It's fantastic. It's good for you. It has the carbs, it has a little bit, of sugar. It's got your calcium, your vitamin D. It's got everything. Just, I think our country really needs to pay attention to what we put in our body, because there's great options out there in the world, right? And we produce them as dairy producers.
And, again, you look at how you look at human health, physical health, and relate that back to animal health. I mean, very similar mindset that you have on both sides, right?
Yeah, I think so. We're so good at paying people to take care of our cows, so good at paying people to give us all the diagnostics. And a lot of people are scared to go to a doctor. And it's like, we're doing it on the dairy. Why can't we do it in our personal life? Once a year visit to the doctor type of deal. And we don't ever talk about what we're eating with our doctor, right? It's, check your blood pressure. Do you brush your teeth? How much do you weigh type of stuff? But like what's going in your body? What's the fuel source?
And I come back to the word optimization, right? You know how to optimize your own personal health and performance. But you're doing the same thing for cows. You're doing the same thing as you start to really look at that baby calf and say, what's the potential here from the environment, genetics, and perhaps someday from the rumen microbiome, starting at that point, who knows what doors that could open up, especially when you look at what you've been able to unlock and uncover was capable in the adult dairy cows' rumen microbiome. Does it ever just blow your mind that these are the conversations we're having now in dairy management?
I still think back to when I was, a high school kid, that I just thought you put milk in front of a calf and that was good enough. And then they grow up and like, milk, you milk mama, and that's it. And now I'm like, geez, we have college kids come here for tours. We just had some last week. And, the evolution of where you are in your career, and you see college kids, they all think they know the world, right? And you talk to them now that, I've been in the industry a little bit, like, ooh, they got some room to learn. And I always talk to people older than me, or people at the university, or our trusted consultants. They know 5 times of what I know on certain subjects, right? So it's, every day there's research happening that's pushing the envelope of our industry, pushing the envelope of what a cow can do. And it's, how fast can we absorb that information and then relay that back to our team? To, again, the goal is that our cow can have a nice, comfortable life here, for as long as possible and be as highly productive for each day of her life here. So we got to keep looking for those answers.
So in that pursuit of looking for those answers, if you were to just kind of look at your time really, really being involved in management, now ownership here at Rosy-Lane, what would you say would be one of the technologies that has really been a game changer here?
When you ask this, I think this answer isn't going to sound very big, but we look at a lot on our farm as parlor performance. So our parlor is our limiting factor when we harvest milk. And how can we get more cows through this same parlor, right? And so one thing when we installed, it's Affimilk is the parlor technology we have. We installed it so we could get milk weights, but with it came milking speed. And we didn't buy it for that. We didn't even really know it was a feature when we bought it. But since the day we bought it, we've used milking speed to cluster our fastest milking cows together. And so we group our cows by lactation and by milking speed. And so the goal is when you put the unit on, they all come off the same time and aside. And I don't know many double 12s that can perform like ours when I go to any farm and either for a tour or to provide some guidance. We always talk about milking speed, and there's not enough farms that are doing that. And you just rearrange your cows a little bit. Wow, you can get far more cows to that same parlor, and that's adding on to your parlor is never easy. It's not is your holding pen set up for an additional parlor? How do you add on to that? Not many people are staged for that. So it's just how do you just have better asset utilization? And that parlor, when we first got in, it had 600 milkings every, say, 8 hours, and now we're getting close to 1,100 milkings every 8 hours through that. So almost doubled the efficiency over time without adding anything to it. And that's something that to this day we're always looking at milking speed, and how does that make that little parlor of ours just spin faster, and parlor throughput is huge for us. So that's something that I think was we almost didn't invest in it, more or less, because we didn't know that was a feature of that. And to this day, when we were growing into every facility, we haven't had to buy many cows because of that feature. You could house the cows.
It all fits together, Jordan, when I hear you talk about these different technologies that you've been a part of bringing in, and the ones that will continue to drive Rosy-Lane forward. And so, when you think about that, so many of these things that we talked about today, you were some of the first. You were some of the first, those early adopters. How do you think that's really shaped the vision and the values here?
I think it's exciting for our team members a lot of days. So nothing's ever off the table. So whether it's one of our managers, whether it's a team member that we send to a training, if they come home with an idea, they know it has potential. I think everyone always wants to at least be heard, right? Not all the ideas are coming from top up by any means. I can think of Sam just had some people head to a training, and when they come back, they have to come back with 3 ideas, right? You have this sheet of paper, and what are 3 things you learned? So whether it's something we should implement, something we shouldn't implement, or like we are doing this, and boy, now I understand better why we're doing that. We've got some really good ideas from sending people that maybe are the soft person in the barn, but again, they spoke up. And so I think it's exciting for when we hire on people, and we have competition in our area of other dairies. Could they work at ours or farm A, B, and C? I think we do have a reputation of listening. And so that's been, I think, something we always value, and I think people value in us, that if they're going to be here, their voice is heard. And then if we do implement a change, so whether it's a different protocol, maybe a new product, what have you, and it was their idea, oh my gosh, it's unreal. I mean, their attitude for whatever X amount of time, they're really excited about that. And so it shouldn't only be buy-in from management, ownership, whatever. It needs to be the whole team, and that happens. And it's I don't know, to me, that's always exciting. And it goes back to our number one on our vision. It's great people. And we have 32 people here. It's not 5. A lot of people look at ownership, and it's everyone here.
So that early adapter is part of the culture.
I think so. I was an employee once, and I always thought my ideas were heard, and some got implemented, some got explained to me why they are not going to get implemented, but you still got understanding, right? So to this day, we want to live that through.
Oh, that's great, Jordan. And okay, so what's next here? You guys have been busy in the last year, doing a lot.
I don't know. We're always looking at, I would say, like, dry cow housing right now is a big push for us. It's, how can we make things better for them? There's a lot of new research that's getting published on, the effects of dry cows that always kind of got pushed in the corner barn, right? And ours are today, I would say, in the corner barn. So, we've been looking at what's a way to maybe make their lives better. Calves, we have a good house for those calves, but we haven't fed calves for 3 years on farm. There's some really interesting new data on colostrum and what are some, feeding a little bit more colostrum for another day or two, what that can do to the life and, that gut microbiome and biology of that calf, looking into things like that. And again, we have a small footprint here, and Daphne always used to say, how do we get better from within? So I think it's living that through. We got to keep it's these small tweaks that we're looking at today, of from the day that calf's born till, can we get, instead of 3.8 lactations, can we get 4? Can we get 4.5 lactations? But it all starts, on day one. We have to do everything right through the system. So I would say those are two big areas we're focused on right now. That what's the change? I don't know, because we haven't done it yet, right? But those are things we're investigating.
Yeah, that's where your head is at, on that next lever to pull. And I gotta finish out with this question. What's next for you? What's your next big goal?
I don't know. So I think personally, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old that are just, they keep me really busy, and they're really entertaining right now. So I think it's important always to be a present father and a good husband at home. And boy, some days that's easy, and some days I'm not as good. So, always can do better there. I think on the dairy every day, I need to show up and live our vision. So I'm not interacting with as many people as I used to on our farm, because of my role has changed a little bit, but making sure everyone understands and what we're here for. So being present and I think encouraging to everyone would be the word I would look for. So those are kind of two areas that I always think. And then running, I'm always thinking of the next thing. I don't know. I didn't think I'd do 100, so check that off. What's the next? I'm not sure. Next time I can reveal, but nothing's planned yet.
Okay.
It'd be more than 100. For sure.
More than 100.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. So we'll be back again to sit down with you either before or after your next big run.
To be continued, right?
To be continued. Yes, to be continued. And Jordan, always a pleasure to get to sit down and have conversations with you, even more so to get to be here at Rosy-Lane to do it. So thank you for joining me on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast once again.
Thank you for what you do for our industry, Peggy.
You just heard from Jordan Matthews of Rosy-Lane Holsteins here on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and if you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to give it a 5-star rating, write a review, or share it with a friend. Until next time, keep on growing, keep on learning, and up-leveling your dairy. This episode is sponsored by Native Microbials, the makers of Galaxis Frontier. Powered by advanced microbiome technology proven to help cows perform to their full potential. Learn more at nativemicrobials.com.